There's a rat on top of the cage.
Oh, that's fine.
They're allowed to be there. All right, mine's about the coolest grandma in the world. Does anybody know this lady already, other than the people I already told about her?
No.
This is Grandma Gatewood. So I figured maybe we'll put this out for Women's History Month in a few months.
Okay.
If we get it edited by then. So Emma Rowena Gatewood was the first woman to hike the entirety of the Appalachian Trail, and she was 67 when she did that. She was really super famous at the time for doing this. She hiked it by herself with like almost nothing on her. She just kind of went out with like a bag over her shoulder one day and just did the entire Appalachian Trail at 67. Yeah, she was also the first person ever to hike the Appalachian Trail 3 times. She has a bunch of other hiking accomplishments. She basically is what made the Appalachian Trail so famous. And she pioneered like ultra-light hiking, and she did a bunch of other stuff. So she was born in Ohio. Her dad was a super abusive, alcoholic Civil War veteran. And so she was pretty much like solely raised by her mother and didn't have the best upbringing. She had to share a bed with 3 of her siblings, 4 of them in one bed. And she was only educated in school up to 8th grade. But then she completely self-educated after that and learned a lot about like foraging and edible plants and wildlife that she totally taught herself just from reading.
So her early life, was that the basis of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory when it first starts the movie?
Oh my God.
It kind of sounds like
Fucking Grandpa Joe didn't leave that bed for 20 years, but he leaped out of that motherfucker when he found out Charlie inherited the chocolate factory. Is that her dad in the bottom left corner? Yeah, let's vandalize him a bit.
It looks too old to be her husband, so I assumed it was her dad. I mean, her husband was like 10 years older than her, but that looks like a larger than that age difference.
Does look angry too.
Yeah.
Well, her husband was also a dick. Her husband was a super dick. He was a tobacco farmer, and he used to make her work on the tobacco farm in addition to like being a normal housewife and raising their 11 children.
Ooh.
Jeez.
Yeah, she had 11 children to take care of, and then he would also make her like work on the farm all the time, and he beat the shit out of her all the time. She's said at one point that there were like several times that she thought he was going to beat her to death. But that was how she started hiking, because she used to run away to the woods when she thought that he was going to kill her. And then eventually she ran away, and the like mayor found her, and he gave her like helped her get a job and get divorced. So pretty nice mayor.
Every time I think of the mayor, I think of that one character.
Nightmare Before Christmas?
No, not Nightmare Before
From
Christmas.
the Powerpuff Girls?
Yes, that mayor.
That's valid.
Then he has like a little sash that says mayor. Like, if I'm ever mayor, I need a sash.
That's mayor.
Yes.
This mayor's got my vote.
So I'm picturing the mayor from Powerpuff Girls rescuing her now. We can just go.
My God.
But pretty impressive. It was in the 40s, and she managed to get a successful divorce and become completely financially independent.
Good for her.
Which was, I mean, the 40s is pretty, or that was still before like the 50s nuclear family age. So that was pretty early to be like a divorced independent woman. So she like raised the rest of her children on her own and got away from that dude. I think he eventually ended up getting arrested for killing someone. So
The fuck?
Ooh.
Well, he was on the way to doing that anyway with her.
yeah, really, really.
He just wasn't successful.
Yeah, I mean, if she never divorced him, that could have been her.
Yeah, probably.
Or one of their kids, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, or the kids. But that was how she started like getting into the woods and enjoying hiking. That was where she used to run away to. And she also obviously was like a very independent person. So she started going out hiking on her own a lot. And one day she opened up a National Geographic magazine and found an article about this trail that was like not very well known at the time, called the Appalachian Trail. And the way they described it made it sound like just a kind of leisurely walk with like nice cabins to sleep in and stuff. And it said you just need to be in relatively good health and you don't need any special training or equipment. So she just went out one day with like nothing and tried to walk it and almost died. She like got super lost, broke her glasses, ran out of food, and was just like laying on the ground, and the park rangers found her. She had started up in Maine, so she tried to hike Katahdin, which for everyone who's not in Maine, is the biggest mountain in our state. That's where the Appalachian Trail starts. You have to like right away hike all 5,000 feet of Katahdin. So she tried to do that and only made it a couple days. And when they found her on Katahdin and were like, you need to go home. And she was super embarrassed about it and considered it like her worst failure. And she didn't tell anyone that she even tried to do it. And then a year later, she was like, I'm going to do it again. And so she told her kids, who were adults at this point, that she was going for a walk and just left and just
Oh my
left
God.
to the Appalachian Trail. And this time she started it down south. I think it starts in Georgia in the south. So she started it down in Georgia this time. And even after the first experience, still thought that it was like a relatively easier trail with like cabins to sleep in and like a lot of way stations, which is definitely not true if you know anything about the Appalachian Trail. So she still didn't bring anything with her, but she did the whole thing successfully this time, but still had like nothing. She didn't bring a tent or anything. She brought a single shower curtain for the rain and just like one pair of sneakers. She had a little bag over her shoulder with like a single change of clothes and a couple of snacks.
Man, also our hiking
But nothing.
poles and our backpacks with the water pouches.
Yeah.
Shoes.
We'll do a fucking day hike up a 1,000-foot mountain in Acadia and have hiking poles and
Oh my God.
fucking backpacks and shit.
She was a trailblazer. Damn.
Literal trailblazer.
A literal trailblazer.
Yeah, but when I say nothing on her, I mean like no actual gear. Like she didn't have a tent or sleeping bags or like any cooking gear or
Well,
anything
she
like that.
had a makeshift poncho.
Yeah.
She was good.
She had a makeshift poncho and some sneakers. So she hiked from May to September. I think it took her 146 days to do the whole thing. And whenever she ran out of food, this time she had taught herself more about the edible plants and everything. So she would just forage for the rest of the food that she needed. And she slept on leaves a lot of the time. And then when it was cold, she would build a fire and heat rocks over the fire and then sleep on the warm rocks.
Oh, I saw them in the survival show once.
Yeah, she probably didn't have a ton of survival shows to watch, but she just
Oh my God.
You might get it done.
she just knew what she was doing.
Flintstones.
Yeah, so she heated stones and shit like that. She knew all the edible plants, and she ended up getting really famous before she even finished the trail. I think she started in May, and then around July, she was on a few news stations already, and then it blew up nationally. And she, like, people would recognize her on the trail, who she was, and help her out. So she had some people kind of help her along the way and bring her food and
At
stuff.
first, she was probably like, "Who the fuck are you?" Like, how do you know me?
Yeah, and eventually, by like halfway through the hike, everybody already knew her and would help her when they crossed her on the trail, and they started all calling her grandma. She was 67 when she did this.
Shit.
Yeah, 67. When she finished, she was quoted as saying, "This is no trail, this is a nightmare." But despite that, she hiked it 2 more times because she was also the first person ever to hike it as much as 3 times. So 2 years later, she decided, after calling it a nightmare, that she was going to do it again. And again, with like not a lot of equipment on her, she decided she really believed in like super light hiking. And then when she was 71, she decided to hike the entirety of the Oregon Trail as like a homage to the like women who hiked it the original time, like considering them wilderness pioneers. So she went and hiked the entire Oregon Trail.
I wonder how many of them survived, like out of the whole that started.
Oh, the original women who did
Yeah.
the Oregon Trail? Not a lot.
Donner Party.
Didn't you ever play Oregon Trail, the
Mm.
computer game?
No, I've never.
Yo, I
even-
love that game.
Is this still a thing?
Wait, you've never heard of it?
Yeah, yeah. You
Oh,
can
never
play
heard
it
of
in
it.
your you can play
You've
it in
never
your
heard of it
browser.
either?
Nope.
It was super famous, like 90s, early 2000s computer game that you would play in school where you would try to beat the Oregon Trail and get to the end, but you would always die of dysentery.
The trick is to name everyone in your party after your friends, so you're more motivated to save them.
Yeah,
Get back in your
everybody
beans.
dies. Oh, rat scapey. Get back.
Bark,
Yeah,
bark,
fucking
bark.
thought so. And everybody followed her Oregon
Oh.
Trail hike too. And when she got to the end, they celebrated it as Grandma Gatewood Day and threw her a whole party. Okay, so then after the Oregon Trail, when she was 76, she hiked the Appalachian Trail a third time, which I think at the very least, I don't know if anyone's beat the record now, but at the time it made her the oldest person to ever hike the Appalachian Trail. And then after that, she just kept leading she would lead like a big group hike through her favorite trail in Ohio every year. And the last one she ever did before she died, over 2,000 people showed up to hike it with her. And they still do it every year in Ohio. And I think 2013, it said over 4,000 people went to hike the trail that day.
Wow.
So people still do it like every year in her memory, and a lot of people do it. She did a lot of work for like maintenance of the Appalachian Trail, and is one of the reasons that it's such a big, well-maintained trail. She started a bunch of like funds and programs to maintain it. And then when she was in her 80s, she built her own trail, the Buckeye Trail, which still exists in Ohio.
We going there?
I would love to go there.
Let's go there tomorrow.
She is a literal trailblazer. She completely built the Buckeye Trail herself. And she also, right before her death, did a huge road trip to see every single state in the continental US.
She's so badass. How old was she when she passed?
I think 85.
Dang.
And it's crazy to think that she started all this when she was 67. So that was just like a 20-year span at the end of her life that she did all.
Fucking crazy.
So if you ever think that like you're like 20 something and you're not getting anywhere in life, this woman lived such a full life just in like her last 20 years. After when she was in her late 60s, she started doing all this.
How the fuck did she, like, how did she even have the money to like do half of this shit?
She didn't need the money because she didn't pay for $1,000 gear like pussy ass backpackers do now.
Like
Ooh.
These days, nobody hikes the Appalachian Trail without like $5,000 worth of gear.
This is true. I mean, like, she didn't even need that shit, like, back in the day. Like, back in the day, like, when you had explorers, like, even but like 100 or 200 years before them, they were just going with like the skin on their teeth, and that was about it.
But the crazy thing about this is that like this wasn't even way back when there were explorers doing that regularly. Like she did it in the 50s, so that was still like modern times when like most people
That's crazy.
didn't know wilderness survival stuff. Like this was already after most people had lost those skills.
Someone who gave a seminar presentation at campus not too long ago was saying he was like in the Venezuelan rainforest with a guy who literally went with no supplies whatsoever, not even stuff to start a fire. And when they ran out of food, he apparently like had a recipe for earthworm stew or something like that.
That sounds like someone who would be good friends with Grandma Gatewood.
I think he was also wanted for murder, but
You need to give a presentation on this. not
Yeah,
this.
come on, Brandon.
That's even cooler.
I
Give us
need to hear
content.
that story. Grandma Gatewood didn't kill anyone.
Give us the content we deserve.
Probably should have killed her fucking husband.
But also it's probably like the way she was raised and like her life in general was just hard. So
I mean, she grew up watching her mom being abused by her dad, so.
yeah, I mean she probably just took out all of her anger on the trails. She's like, fuck
Probably.
this!
Yeah, not to like say that it was a good thing, but like it's how she got into the woods, and
No,
it's
but
why
I mean-
all of this happened, and it's how she was independent enough to go hike the trail by herself.
No, and it was also, it's pretty cool though, because it's like she probably took out all of her anger and frustration and anxiety into like something that was actually good for her health and like good for other people as well, because it inspired so many other people to actually go out into nature.
Yeah, it made hiking really big, and it made the Appalachian Trail really big. And like I said, she started like all these programs and funds and stuff for trail maintenance.
What are her kids up to these days?
I'm not sure. She has a lot of descendants because she had 11 children, and then
yeah, were those some of her kids in the first slide?
Is she gonna
Yeah.
be like the next Genghis Khan?
probably.
Oh my God. We're all just related to her. Every
Yes.
single one of us has like a small amount of grandma DNA.
We
Probably.
we got badassery flowing in these
Eventually,
veins.
everyone in the world will be related to Grandma Gatewood. I'm surprised she died of a heart attack. You'd think she would have had a really healthy heart.
Maybe she ate like shit.
That's
mean,
true. She may
I'm
have.
sure the wild plants are probably pretty nutritious though, but
But besides that though, like was she eating a lot of canned goods? Because that was like the height probably of like the imports of like canned crap, especially right after the war.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe she just loves Spam.
Hey, I've
Yeah,
heard it's good. I mean, it looks like shit, but
my brother
It
really
is
likes
not, does not look appealing.
it does not.
my brother
It
likes
smells
it.
bad.
I think my mom and dad grew up on that shit, and they said they would never like have any of their kids eat that ever. Like they would never subject us to that.
That's good parenting.
I like your parents.
I had some pretty good canned herring, however long back.
Gross.
Anyway, she by the time she died, she'd walked over 14,000 miles, which is equivalent to more than halfway around the earth. Stop. That's all I got. That was it.
For some reason, the one song that's playing is my head somewhere over
Through the rainbow.
That's
It's a
my
good
thought.
song.
It is a good song.
I think that's a good thought. I really want to go hike the Buckeye Trail in
That'd be
Ohio
so-
now.
We have a reason to spare Ohio.
Spare Ohio? What, in your plan for like world destruction?
Have you seen all those memes? It's like an asteroid striking the earth and says like, take that, Ohio.
What did Ohio do to
I
you,
know.
Brandon?
But she really liked Ohio.
I feel like I have to love Ohio now. Like I have to reject the memes. I'm sorry, trash
holy
can
shit.
Paul.
She built a long trail in Ohio.
How
Or
long is
maybe
it?
she just started it. It loops around the whole state.
What the fuck?
It's over 1,000 miles.
I can't even like walk.
Oh yeah, okay.
outside.
So she made a 30-mile trail, which is still pretty long, that then later was extended into the Buckeye Trail. But she was in her 80s when she did that and spent it says 10 or more hours a day, every day, clearing out this trail.
Yeah, it's so sad that you had to go through such a rough upbringing, but
Really,
fact-
the vast majority of her life.
yeah, like
was
Yeah.
awful.
Was kind of shit. Yeah.
But she's like a survivor though. Like she survived all of that and then she just went on and just kept continuing, like persevering every single. Like, I
she
guess
didn't
you
let
can-
it
You can
overcome
tell
her.
it's the kind of person she is from how she like went out and like completely failed and got totally lost in the woods, and then a year later is like, I'm gonna go back again.
And you can like, she could have easily stopped right then and there and just never did it again.
And she didn't even want to go home even that first time when she failed. The Rangers found her and like drove her out and were like, no, you need to go home.
So she was gonna be like, I'm gonna die out here, whether
Yeah.
you like it or not.
She was like lost in the middle of the Maine woods, like, I'm gonna finish this trailer, I'm gonna fucking die trying. And the Rangers were like, okay, grandma, you need to go home. And that first section of the trail through Maine is called the 100-mile wilderness. It's like the toughest part of the trail, and it's just
And she fucking did that shit.
it's just like 100 miles of nothing. That was where she got lost.
So anytime Brandon bitches on that trail, just be like, a 67-year-old woman beat this trail. Come on.
Then yeah, the next time I'm struggling on a day hike, I'm gonna be like,
Remember grandma. Rat.
Oh no,
Yeah.
Fran.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in this week. Kelsey, do you have a threat for us tonight?
No, you know the rules. If it's my presentation, I don't have to make the threat.
Oh, that's right. Brandon, threat.
Subscribe or we'll make you hike the entirety of the Appalachian Trail without any supplies
With a shower curtain.
with a
Just
shower curtain tent,
No tent.
No tent.
No tent.
with just a shower curtain to function as a tent.